Let's do it. You start us off.
Hi, everyone.
Sorry. Take two. Okay. There we go.
Hello, everyone. It's Mandi Rae of Ecstatic Astrology, and I'm here with Christa, Practical Astros, in her birthday month, the last few minutes of the sun in Taurus for the June forecast. We are recording today, Tuesday, May 20th. It's 9:44 a.m. in Central Time, Birmingham, Alabama. 10:44 in Asheville, North Carolina, coming to you, not live, but I kind of wish we were. We should do a live one sometime.
Oh, that'd be fun. Maybe we should do that for like Leo.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Let's do that.
All our ideas come through while we're recording. So I guess, we'll talk about June. Suppose we will. This is my calendar. Bunch of emojis.
Yeah, I texted Mandi last night. I was like, I can't wait to see what your emojis are for the week of the 22nd.
There's so many. It is quite a full month. I mean, it really, I think we were talking before. And do you want to show your calendar at all?
Yeah, we can throw it in. Let's talk over yours, because yours is just more legible. Mine is more, it's just my own thing. I appreciate your emoji language. As Jupiter leaves Gemini, I hope that we don't lose the emoji language, because it's actually very helpful.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's because it's like, how do you put on a calendar? You have to say Venus square this, and then you're typing it out, and then if you do the symbols, people are like, I don't know what that means. And so I was like, maybe an emoji will help.
Yeah, and for the 9th, for the calendar I made, I just put the world card. I was like, it's just
indeed,
just spin the wheel, big money, no whammies sort of a day. And I like that the 10th does not even exist on your calendar. You just put everything, all the stuff that's happening on the 9th, with the Sag moon, of course, there. But that's jumping ahead. You want to start with the 1st of June?
Sure. Venus conjunct Chiron. I looked at the beginning of the month and I was like, that's really how we enter it. And normally I don't put Chiron on these calendars. Sometimes I do, but I do love the mythology of Chiron, and the wounded healer, and Venus conjoining Chiron there after. I mean, Chiron was so heavily involved in the Mars retrograde is what I keep thinking. Mars squared Chiron 3 times.
Yeah.
And then Venus went retrograde in Aries. And so this seems like a moment that we can tap into, especially if you look at where Aries is in your chart, to intend on some healing there. Venus is, benefic, and it comes together with this wounded healer, which sometimes can be sensitive, and sometimes if it's Mars, it hurts, But with Venus, I think this is a healing moment to start off the month of June, and one in which we really should be paying attention to the Aries part of our charts as we go into some of these transits with the squares to Saturn there. So I think that's a beautiful way to start off the month.
Yeah, and also, I mean, June is connected to May, and that last week of May has a lot of stuff kind of being stirred up, some new energies and new shifts that I feel like that first week of June on the calendar doesn't look like much, but because there's so much stacked the week prior, we'll be dealing with that. And yeah, Chiron isn't one that we talk about unless it's pretty significantly placed with another transit, like it was last year for the eclipse. But I think you're right, because Venus has just gone through that retrograde. Venus and Mercury did through Aries, kind of hitting that point. Chiron as the key. I had a Chimandu Jai reading Chinese astrology through Jo Russell of Smashing Secrets. She's an excellent astrologer over in the UK, and there's all of these different guardians that you can access through the magic of Chiman. And one of them is called the grappling hook. And the way she described it reminded me a lot of Chiron, and commanding the grappling hook to kind of reach back through time to ask forgiveness and give forgiveness through those that have hurt you, those who have hurt your ancestors, who your ancestors have hurt, who you have hurt. It's like this hook that goes back and kind of reweaves the injury and gets rid of the scar tissue in a way. And it just reminded me so much of Chiron, that the idea of, the wounded healer is someone that goes back and helps rectify and heal that's been wronged by them and to them. It's like not just singular. It's not just going in and being a nurse, but it's also healing yourself in the process. And Venus conjunct that with that newly refreshed, empowered Venusian Aries energy, I think it is significant, to just kind of start the month of June, because there's a lot about to happen, not necessarily in the Venusian realm. So take this week for what it is, and focus on that to kind of prep for all of the excitement that is June.
Yes, I agree. And I mean, I think it's significant to just the fact that it's in Aries. Like Chiron has been transiting Aries, and then we're about to have so much, I don't know, you want to say heaviness in Aries with Saturn there, to me, it feels significant that it's almost like, pay attention here, make sure you know what areas of this part of your chart need, I guess, attention and need love and need healing, before Saturn comes around and stomps all over that place. So I love that Venus is like rushing towards its home sign too.
Mm-hmm.
There's the golden egg. The goose lays the golden egg with
That's right.
Venus entering Taurus on the 6th. Did you
Yeah,
have anything else for that first week?
She'll be there the whole month, right? She doesn't move into Gemini until July. Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was anything else on that first week.
No, that's all I have.
Yeah. And I'd put the golden egg because Venus, loves luxurious things in Taurus. And I was like, how do I say luxury? But this feels more like, Uranus is about to leave Taurus. Venus will square Pluto, but there's some gem here with Venus transiting Taurus, I think, all month. Even though it'll square Pluto, it's giving us a gift that we haven't had in Taurus, I think, in quite a while. Uranus has just been shaking everything up. So
yeah. And Venus goes in and kind of soothes and eases and wants things to work together. So if you're in a Venus, if Venus is your time lord, like through solar return or through perfection, or just is your ascendant ruler, Venus coming home is kind of nice after having some wild, there's that John Anderson song, Wild and Blue. And I think of it as like Venus in Aries. It's just like, she's gone a little crazy, but when she comes home is when she comes back to Taurus, and it's just a little easier and nicer.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Although it does make me think of Veruca Salt,
Oh yeah.
But I want the egg. I want the golden egg.
No, that's Venus and Libra. Just to be fair.
That's true. That's true. Or maybe it's the Venus square Pluto too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is coming. But the moon in Scorpio, that's kind of cute. The moon will probably oppose it. Should we look at the chart for that?
Sure, yeah.
Why not? Let's look at the Venus ingress into Taurus. Oh, yeah. So the moon goes into Scorpio that evening, I guess. There it is. Do I have it on the correct day, right? Maybe not. June 6th. And it's actually June 5th here. The Venus ingress is. No, I can't get them all right. But I do like on June 6th, the moon will oppose it. I like moon opposite Venus.
Yeah, a nice tango.
That's right. And then we have Mercury moving into Cancer. So ingress, June 8th is Mercury in Cancer. And this one is important because it's right before Jupiter moves into Cancer. I like that Mercury because Jupiter has been in Mercury's domicile for a while.
Yeah.
Yes. And Mercury leads the way out of Gemini for Jupiter. And I think that is just cute as a button. I like that.
Yeah.
But that means Mercury will right off the bat square Saturn. So here we are. We're in the thick of it by June 8th.
Yeah. And like, so what do you think about squares from cardinal signs really do feel like spokes on the wheel to kind of move things forward.
Oh, yeah.
You know, squaring anything square to Mercury usually kind of erupts in some sort of that kind of work it out through talking, but maybe it's a little bit more emotionally charged with Mercury and Cancer, maybe taking it a little bit more personally. But maybe taking it personally is what you needed to happen, because Mercury and Gemini kind of can disassociate. And having Mercury there and in a personal, it's like, you know, I'm going to say it because it fucking bothers me. And it needs to be released. So that release, that pressure valve of release of the cardinal signs really does propel things forward. But square to Saturn, you know, what's your
That's the
sense of
thing.
that?
It really just pops off. I mean, anything that's moving into Cancer, any cardinal sign, but specifically Cancer, because that's the season we're in, is going to square Saturn and Neptune right off the bat, almost immediately. And the same for fixed signs. So if you look, Venus has just gone into Taurus, but it's going to square Pluto almost immediately. So by the Mercury ingress, we are, and I'm going to go back to the calendar because we're going to show just how much happens this week. And it kicks off, Mercury in Cancer kicks off a lot of action. Let me put it that way. And I do think you're right. Cardinal signs are active and they change things, especially when there's squares or oppositions involved. You know, I'm tuning into, like, for instance, the fixed squares, when feeling into like the full moon in Scorpio. Those changes seem almost like breaking a bone, whereas cardinal changes seem almost like we're flowing into a change. And maybe when you have Aries involved, it can be frustrating. It can be high energy, but it's less, there's less resistance to the change, I think, when you have a cardinal square. So maybe that's why it's so exciting to me. And I've been looking at this week, just there's definite tough spots in it, but I'm so excited and motivated by the possibility of moving forward into something new and in something fresh. And I think that's what this Mercury ingress and then Jupiter ingress is going to do.
Yeah, there's momentum. It's almost like things that are involuntary or out of your control. It's like the momentum is just pushing you this way. So maybe that's the flow. It's like you don't have to insert your own will like you would with a fixed. It's like that's just where the tides are going. That's where the energy is flowing. That's the easiest path, you know, through the maze. It's like it's clear where the energy goes. And so that flow is exciting. It's not, you know, relax in an inner tube and float down the river. It's like the motivation. It's like this is clearly the direction you need to take. And that's kind of a good thing with the tropical or cardinal signs, is that momentum that gets initiated in those, and then dragging the fixed behind.
That's right. That's right. And I'm actually, I love what you just said about it's not float down the river in an inner tube, because the mutable squares, and this is the difference. I think we could talk about this. When Jupiter moves into Cancer on the 9th, it will square Saturn. I think the exact square is the 15th, but it pretty much holds because of the degrees. So it feels like the Jupiter square to Saturn from Gemini to Pisces was so absolutely confusing, so absolutely disillusionment to me. I did not, personally speaking, and I have a lot of mutable placements, personally speaking, but it didn't feel like, it's like, what are we even changing? What is even the tension here? I couldn't really get it. So as far as the Jupiter Saturn square, I'm kind of looking forward to the square from the cardinal signs, specifically because of the momentum, the okay, maybe there's some actual physical reality I will see with this square rather than existential dread.
Yeah, and then having the full moon right there, you know, kind of casting back all the light, reflecting all of the light. It's, it's at the last degree. Is that right? Like, what's the, can we look at the full moon chart
Yep.
actually to see? Because if we think of the moon as like the collective satellite that translates the light, moon can represent the people. And
so there's Jupiter in Cancer, in case anyone wanted to see that. There's the ingress, and then and that's why I have a TP, because it's like coming home. That's what it feels like. And then the full moon, June 11th.
Oh, it's at 20. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's at 20 degrees. And I mean, full moon in Sag with its ruler exalted in Cancer is wonderful.
Yeah.
Really like this full moon. I mean, there's one thing that is the caveat, and that's only Saturn. And I look at the power almost, and the power of Jupiter is much greater than the power of Saturn in these signs right now. So Saturn is in fall in Aries, doesn't do extremely well. So this full moon is like, yeah, Saturn's yanking on Jupiter a little bit, but I think Jupiter has more power here.
Yeah, Saturn is in a superior position. So if we think of that and just like in a practical application, the demands of that Saturn in Aries are going to put upon the Jupiter in Cancer there. But prior to recording, we were talking about, just how varied the assumption or the prediction of Jupiter Cancer. It's like, yes, Jupiter is exalted there. So there's an idea that things will be easier because it's not exiled like it is currently in Gemini. But an exalted planet really does rely on others. It's exalted because people help it out. And if there is pressure put from that Saturn, from authority, or the tensions of authority, or the tensions of time, of old versus young, that kind of the Saturn story that we're about to live through the next couple of years, it's going to put pressure on that Jupiter in Cancer. I sense like a prediction for just for me on the onset of this transit is that the beauty is that we'll learn to help each other better and ask for help, and that we'll do that because of the hardship that is being placed upon us, whether that's mutual aid. I think mutual aid and just support and showing up and being the caretakers for each other will be kind of that silver lining and that beauty of Jupiter in Cancer. But we're doing it because it's difficult, and it's not going to just be, again, floating down the lazy river in an inner tube. It's really going to be showing up and empowering ourselves. And I like the full moon for that, because it is that that collective reflection of lighting the path so that we can kind of walk in the dark together. When the moon is high and it lights the path at night, it's like allowing us to travel at night, to be able to gather and talk and plan and have fun and do things outside of the workday and have a bit more social pleasure time. Like full moons are collectively experience, and to have that full moon really kind of casting that light on the ingress of Jupiter going into Cancer. I feel like we're gonna have a lot of work ahead with that square, but we'll learn how to be. We'll learn what cooperative economics truly is for Jupiter and Cancer, and I'm a big fan of that. But it's not going to be just simple. It's not going to just be. It's not going to be handed on a platter. It's going to be like takeout boxes that you deliver to a friend because they lost their job and they can't afford to get food, or whatever that is. It's going to be that humble work that is collectively experienced, and we all get to participate in it. It's just going to be, but it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, with specifically with this full moon, I do think Jupiter is getting help from a lot of different areas. So I'm not looking at Saturn so heavy during the full moon, specifically because the moon is in Jupiter's sign and Jupiter's in the moon sign. They're in mutual reception. And then if you look at the sun and Mercury too, feeding off of that energy, I think the full moon is probably a good bet for at least a little bit of a respite, because if you look at the day before, or the couple of days before, June 9th, Jupiter moves into Cancer. But then you've got Venus. Actually, I guess that's right. It's the same day. Venus squares Pluto, and Mercury squares Saturn right before the full moon. So let me do, I think Venus squares Pluto first. And so I was looking at that and thinking, there's Venus square Pluto right here, that big red line. And then at the same time, Mercury squares Saturn. And they're just, and the moon is in Sag at that point, while Jupiter is about to ingress Cancer. It's just such a bizarre kind of sequence of events. So I could see this being maybe the Monday being a hard moment, Tuesday, and then maybe the full moon is okay, I see what this is about now because it's a full moon with Jupiter in the moon sign. So I'm hoping that full moon gives us a minute, let me put it that way, a little bit of respite from, like you were saying, the heaviness of Saturn being in Aries now. And Mercury is going to tune into that immediately, right before the full moon. So Mercury is going to square Saturn, Venus is going to square Pluto, and there's just this tug of war, empowerment. Mercury square Saturn's more like, I've got to do this, but I feel held back. Venus is like, I really would like to, have all of my comforting things around me and just go home, curl up in a blanket and have a beer, but maybe I should join the protest down the road. I don't know. It's very tough to make decisions right here, I think. But I think the full moon is like maybe almost an answer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, because like the energy of building up to a full moon is usually felt as like the full moon experience. So those days prior to, it's like the full moon itself is like that, like being on a roller coaster and finally reaching the top. Like when you go up, you're like the tick, 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 tick. And then once you get to the top, then you're able to kind of like sort it all together.
Then you plummet. Sorry.
Then you put your hands up and you scream with joy because like things are out of your control. They never were in your control to begin with.
That's right.
But it's like the full moon is that pinnacle and the energy leading up to it. That's why I think June 9th, 10th are going to be pretty
harder.
It's just gonna be a lot. But also we look at the square to Saturn, but Neptune is super close still.
It is.
So when you talked about like the mutable confusion, like what is the problem here? Like I can't sort it out. I wonder if that Neptune in Aries is kind of softening in strange ways that harshness of Saturn.
Yeah.
I listened to Star Hearth Astrology, Whitney Will, and she was talking about how she hasn't been able to really write about Neptune Aries. She was like, I just haven't experienced it yet. She said, I can put all these words into what I think the delineation will be, but so much of it is already like, I can't write about that transit ahead of time because I need to embody it and experience it and slowly tease it out. And it really hit home of like, Neptune is just tricky to see. And the mutable squares, when Neptune was in Pisces, the square from Pisces to Gemini, that is different, but we still kind of have that with Neptune being so close to Saturn. And I wonder if that will soften the hard edges that Saturn likes to maintain.
Yeah, I agree. Because if you look at Mercury square Neptune, that happens. It does it immediately because Mercury is moving so fast. So it squares Saturn, then it squares Neptune. And I think maybe I should wait until the Jupiter Neptune square to talk about that. I will wait because there's some things I have to say about it, but it's like I want to say it when we get to the day. But I agree, June 9th and 10th are probably, I mean, if you want to judge the harder things, the Jupiter ingress is going to be the best part of the 9th and 10th, but the rest of it is just like Venus square Pluto, Mercury square Saturn, then square Neptune, a little bit of a whirlwind. And I think if you look at the things going on, of course, I'm US based, so I think about the United States. And when I look at that, I'm like, I don't know how much of this is going to be collective and how much is just going to be personal, because it feels like a mixture of both. And So there could be something that happens on the world stage that then we have to react to, or there could be something in your personal life. Like for me, I mean, Christa knows, but my husband lost his job. By the way, he has a business degree in for
Yes.
hiring.
See,
That being said,
that is mutual aid. It's like it's breaking those down a little bit. So it is it's like it's a global experience. It's a national experience of people have losing their jobs, losing their employment, and then personally like casting your net out to like weave to the larger community.
yeah, exactly. And how much of that, I mean, I can directly look at when stuff started changing with his job, and it was when the tariffs were put on. So it is a personal micro experience and a macro experience at the same time. And I
Yeah.
think that's how this is going to really play out, like you said, just the toughness of what's being put on us, and then how we are resilient with each other and how we
Mm.
nurture each other and things of that nature. But
Yeah, and having Jupiter and Mercury in Cancer, having Venus in Taurus, especially with a fix. So Venus and Taurus square that Pluto, like fixed, like when we find something that we like, we really want to hold on to it because it's like it took us a long time to find the texture or the consistency or the fragrance or the color or the position or whatever it is, and we finally got it right. And so there, I feel like there might be some stubbornness to hold on to the things that we really enjoy, and that strength of holding on to it exists, and the comfort with Cancer also exists. And we're going to have this before things really move out of those soft watery signs and those comfort signs of Taurus and Cancer when they move into Leo and Gemini. So it is like kind of a holding on to like what we value, what we really want to hold on to. I think the tension is going to be like that fighting for the things that we care about, even if it's like first world problems of like, I really want to have access to this. I really want to support this business. I don't want my friend's business to go out to go under because of some regulatory issue that is just a cash grab for the state, like
yeah,
it's like that as above so below, also politically, what's going on in your community, what's going on in your city, your state, your nation, it trickles down and it affects you in your own situation. So again, it's that tension. That square is totally loud for June.
Yeah, shout out to Jenny at Magic City Organics, because Alabama's doing some funny business with the cannabis industry here, and
And
it's
not the good kind of funny business.
not the good kind of funny
Oh,
business.
I did want to shout out. So every year when the moon is full in Sagittarius, I always make Florida water, and it's really easy. I'll put a recipe in the show notes. It's great to make Florida water out of the flowers that grow around you. It's really good flower magic. And the full moon is just like such a great time. The full moon in Sag, while the sun is in Gemini, is like Florida water day. So I think I said that last year, but it's such a great day to make it. And so maybe that's a good remediation for all the tension, is just to go pick flowers.
I love that. I think that's a great idea. And my elderberry flowers are coming in, my elderflower, and I like to make elderflower tincture too. So
Mm.
it seems like a good time to do any of that sort of thing. And I was looking too, and I don't need to go back to the chart for this, but during this time, Mars is trine Chiron from Leo to Aries.
Oh,
And
right. Yeah.
it's almost more of that service, hopefully. I mean, the trine to Mars is iffy. We'll see, but I hope that there is comfort for everyone during this week, because the 14th is a WTF day to me.
That's Flag Day. We'll just say that.
It's Mars square Uranus, and Mars is anger, frustration, it's fighting, and squares are tension, and Uranus is change and upheaval and revolution and freedom, and Taurus, which is, I look at this, it could be supply chain, there's protests that day. It's explosive. That's how I've always looked at Mars Uranus, generally speaking, pretty explosive. And I'm sure Jupiter Uranus can be that way too, but with Jupiter doesn't do the explosiveness quite like Mars does, I
Yeah.
think. So
I
I
have
would,
them conjunct to my chart, so I can't always tell the two apart.
oh, right, there you
Yeah.
go.
And Mars seems like the spark, and Jupiter is like the bellows that inflame the spark. So, but yeah, I think I would take a Jupiter square Uranus. But who knows? I mean, if you look at what your where Leo is and where Taurus is in your chart, like if you're Leo rising, Taurus is your 10th, looking at, you kind of having it out with someone in authority or someone at work, boss, if you're, I don't know, Cancer rising,
Yeah,
that's
it's in
gonna,
your money and goals area, so
yeah.
Lord knows.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I don't want to put all bad on it, but with Mars, being what it is, we're both in a mentorship, me and Christa both are, and I said something about malefic, and she was like, "We don't say that word."
But
But
malefics just say
traditionally,
no. They just say no. Yeah.
they just say no. Yeah, traditionally speaking, it's not the easiest. Let me put it that way. Mars is not. So I like to think that Uranus can create opportunities and can, if there is anything tough here, it's going to shift you towards freedom. It's about breaking chains and things of that nature. So if something changes, maybe you can try to reframe that into maybe it needed to change. And of course, we've got other aspects this week that indicate change,
Mhm.
So
And the moon is in Aquarius, which is another fix. So they're kind of squaring off with each other.
doing that T-squared thing. Yeah, yeah. So I would put that on my calendar as a day. Like for instance, I would not go skydiving that day. Would not do that. Would not, just not gonna do it. Not gonna take
Yeah,
it.
there's a sense of like with especially maybe it was that the Sun Uranus on alcohol. There's the idea of just like losing your head.
Mhm.
And there's a bit of pride with Mars and Leo, and the stubbornness of fixed signs, the passion with Mars, the clunkiness of Taurus, and having kind of this lightning bolt wielding Uranus there. There's the idea of squaring off and uh, learning or appreciating when to back down when you just need to. There's that Kenny Powers episode where he like is yelling at his family for being on top of his jet ski. He's like, "It's not a toy," and they're like, "Well, it kind of is a toy." And he's yelling as he's like, "I can't stop yelling because then it means that I've lost the argument, but I love you and I'll see you home for dinner." Like he keeps the tone of the argument, but what he's saying is actually just like normal conversation. To me, that is like not wanting to lose the argument and losing your head in it unnecessarily. So
Mm.
really tending to just, maybe you do need to have that argument with someone to just let off steam, but the chances of it getting way out of hand or violent or unnecessarily injurious to, it's like that exists on the 14th.
Mhm.
A Saturday night brawl, I could totally see like a nightclub getting out of hand and like people bringing out knives, like blades are such a Mars thing, and really just getting out of control. So there's protests that are planned for that day. I worry literally about violence, about explosions, about cuts, about severance. The malefic energy of Mars is to sever. It says no by cutting things off. So, even if it's just redirecting traffic to get home, like what if Taurus is your third house and you can't drive home that day because there's a protest in your local town and they have cut off access to your neighborhood, whatever it is. It's just
Mm.
like it is disruptive. And
Mhm.
just keeping a cool head, keeping your head on, not losing your head, proverbially, literally, figuratively, all those things. It's like the 14th is like a WTF day, and just like what can you do to
Mhm.
capture the power, because it's also like a really great empowerment if you can harness it and channel it. But the chances of collectively going haywire with the moon also kind of caught up in that, the moon being the people, is concerning. Like I think it kind of sucks.
Mhm.
So but life sometimes sucks, the moon and Pluto right there. Yeah, forgot
That's what I
there.
wanted to just look at. The exact Mars Uranus square happens overnight. It's like 4 a.m. here, 4:30 a.m. on the 15th. But that's why I put the symbol on the 14th, is because like you and I both talked about how it builds up right before, usually. I mean, even for the full moon, we were talking about talking about that. But this morning, this is at 11:45 a.m. in Birmingham, Alabama. The moon and Pluto are conjoined, and Mars is just a few minutes from the exact square here. So, I mean, building up to it. And this is really the thick of it, I think. Like the exact moment at 4:45 a.m. that night is not gonna, or the next morning is not gonna, I think, make much more of an impression than the moon Pluto happening right here.
Yeah.
So sextile too to Saturn and Neptune. I mean, I think the best part about the Mars square to Uranus is that at least the ruler of Uranus is Venus in the same sign. And I mean, importantly too, I think you should look at where Gemini is in your chart for this, because that's where the sun is, and the sun rules Leo. So Taurus, Gemini, Leo stuff, Aquarius stuff for sure.
I like that Venus and Mercury are sextile each other. They're also in each other's bounds. They're playing by each other's rules. Again, there's that kind of, it does speak to mutual aid. There's a sextile between Mars and the sun. I think that looks like they're both in Mars's bounds. So it does scream a little bit of pride. June is also Pride Month, right? So, I mean, like, I wonder if it's going to be kind of making the presence louder, that, there's people that are being especially trodden upon for the way that they are. And whether that's refugees or the LGBTQIA community, or immigrants or women or people of color. I mean, it's like all of that. It really speaking out, supporting each other, that collective piece. The moon Pluto is actually it's a shaking a fist at the powers that be, and dissolving the authority with Neptune, Saturn there, but still within a context of it being tricky. And the cardinal signs of this is the beginning of change. This is the momentum that if the momentum can change in the direction that we would like it to see it go, then we can do that.
Yeah, and I mean, the next day is the exact Jupiter Saturn square as well. So we're right there at it. Mars squares Uranus, and then Jupiter decides to come in. It's like, hey, I'll square something. Let me square something.
It's a square party.
It's a square party. Jupiter square. So I'm gonna get the exact moment. That is 9:36 a.m. With Mars at the anaretic degree of of Leo, excuse me. So the Jupiter Saturn square is caught up in the Mars Uranus square, at the same time. And we spent some time on it when we were talking about the Jupiter ingresses, because it's been building up to this for those 2 weeks. I mean, June 9th through June 15th is the build up to the Jupiter Saturn square. And so there it is right here. And it's Jupiter trying to escape the leash and Saturn just yanking the leash, And Jupiter's like, I'm trying to get away. Good news is after that, it's only got Neptune to square, and then Jupiter is released from Saturn, from the exact square stuff. So we can look forward to this moment in a way, because it is the end of the Jupiter Saturn squares. We've had 3 of them. The last 2 were in mutable signs. Maybe we should look at those really quick. The first one was August 19th of last year, and there it was with Mars to Saturn in Pisces. And so there's the mutable part that I was talking about. It was pretty I think existential. Things were just weird. And then December 24th, again, pretty existential, weird. Mars was retrograde at that time. It's like the first one was a harbinger for the Mars retrograde, which is funny. So you can look at those two dates and almost it's like the peaks, right? So August, then December, and
Christmas
now we're
Eve. Yeah.
here, June 15th, the last one. That's a long process.
Yeah.
And it won't be too long before Jupiter trines Saturn. It's so funny how fast that can happen. So this is really the last hurrah of Jupiter Saturn for the moment. Of course, Jupiter's expansion, expanding the need to nurture, care, feel our emotions, help each other. And Saturn in Aries is like, yeah, but we have war plans to make.
Yeah. When you were going through it, like the image that came into mind was Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And so like Goldilocks is like intruding on, someone else's home. And like the first square is like, someone's been sitting in my chair. And the second square is like, someone's been eating my porridge. And the third square is like, someone is literally sleeping in my bed. And like, that's the final, like,
Kick them out.
You realize what has been going on the whole time. So maybe there's that sense of realization of like, now I get it. Now I understand what that Christmas Eve was about, or what that midsummer was about. Like now it's like, I realize that Goldilocks has been intruding and like, sitting in my chair. Like, how dare you sit in my chair? I was looking at, the June 9th through the June 15th, because where the sun is in Tarot, that last decan of Gemini, which is pretty much the June 10th through, this time, is that those last 10 degrees of Gemini. And the tarot card associated with it is the 10 of Swords. And like the person is laying on the ground and there are literally 10 swords in the back. And Emily Litzel of Alchemy, her phrase with that card is like, finally the swords have a place to land. Like the whole sword saga through Tarot is like difficulty and discord and fighting and heartbreak and escape and all this, but it's like finally they're all landed. It looks pretty devastating, but at least they've all ended. It's like the end of the story. And then when we go from the end of Gemini to the beginning of Cancer, it's summer solstice. It's like the sun is no longer trying to climb. Now it's going to be riding down that roller coaster, and there is a little reprieve there. So it's that, all of that information, all of that mercurial like illumination can just be overwhelming, but it's like it can find a storyline, it can find a thread to go with. And it just, that whole week, it does like all of the symbolism. We've looked at the Sabian symbol for the Kazemi that's coming up. Like all of that does feel like it's building, and then the crescendo of building up to the middle of the month and then writing down the second half of the month.
Writing it down. Yeah. And it's funny that you said the Goldilocks sitting in my chair, being in my house, because Saturn was literally in Jupiter's home for a while. I was like, that's it. Saturn's being kicked out of Jupiter's home. And Jupiter's like, I had to go to my vacation home to get you out of there.
I had to go all the way to the beach.
I had to go all the way because Jupiter's exalted in Cancer, is an honored guest. So we make it through June 15th. And things do lighten up a little bit. There is some other things coming up. So we've got Mars moving into Virgo. Love it. Excited about it.
Yeah, both Mandy and I are both Mars Virgo natives and love our placements, our Mars placement.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the only thing grounding me at all is Mars and Virgo. It's like, I think that's the only Earth sign I have in my chart. So
it's funny. I don't think my Mars and Virgo grounds me at all. But I have it pretty early on, so I think the transit will hit my return will happen before. So I'll give you the details if I feel more grounded or more Vata or in the air, because that's how my Mars and Virgo feels. It feels way up here. Also with the hands, there's something about Mars and Virgo. It's like I love to do things with my hands. I love to keep my hands busy, hands in the dirt, hands in a sewing machine, hands on collage, like carrying groceries. Like I love the dual nature of Virgo, and like having something to do with my hands. Like even when I drive, I kind of spin my rings, it's just like a Mars and Virgo thing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and mine's such late it's late Virgo and it's square Neptune anyway, so I don't even want to talk about mine. But
caught up in like those like wet spider webs of Neptune.
oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I still do. I love it. I think it's the same way I love to garden. I love to get my hands dirty in that way and do things with my hands. And Mars and Virgo, I've got the magnifying glass because there is the details of Virgo that you get to. And I mean, there is a little bit of an elephant in the room, and that's the South Node at the end of Virgo, toward the end of it. And so Mars will be heading toward the South Node. So there is, I guess at the very beginning, it's probably going to be pretty enjoyable, maybe being able to get down to business and do some things you needed to do. But then there's the purging aspect of the Mars South Node coming. That will be, I think, more like July. But
yeah, Mars with the South Node in Virgo, like what comes to me is if you have any sort of spiritual practice, cleanliness is next to godliness. Like there's so much power in like keeping your altar space clean and revamping it. And you know, Virgo is a mercurial sign, so there's like this communicative aspect to it. But as it approaches that, I like the South Node as a place to return to for kind of spiritual comfort and to do the dutiful thing of keeping your altar clean, like just replacing the flowers and maybe get, you know, polishing up your stones or putting new picture frames or whatever it is, like do something very functional. But the South Node doesn't have to just be the drain, which it often can be. It can be that place of letting go of the material ambition and like surrendering to the spiritual hammock, you know?
I agree. And it is, I think it will definitely be a transit that informs on what the eclipses are about. I think that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's some things coming. We'll talk about that in a second. But I think the Jupiter square Neptune the next day is kind of hilarious with regards to the fact that Mars will be in Virgo, because it's like Mars probably really wants to organize, get some stuff done, you know, things of that nature. We're motivated towards that, but Jupiter square Neptune's like, what?
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
I like all the eyeballs floating around the person.
Yeah. I worry about martyrdom around this kind of stuff. I mean, with Jupiter, and worry is probably a ridiculous word for this because I'm not worried about it, but when I think of Neptune and what Neptune can represent martyrdom, even Virgo to a certain extent, there's the Pisces Virgo axis of that, of being someone who serves and who lays down for people. And Jupiter in Cancer squaring Neptune here is almost like, don't delude yourself into hurting yourself, if that makes sense. Because
but yeah, I think Mars and Virgo, you know, is self-pitying placement oftentimes of like that no one has any idea how much I do for them. It is very martyrish.
It is.
So I didn't even think about that with that square the next day of kind of being, you know, excited with the Mars and Virgo, but then having that delusion of self-pitying on the 18th.
Yeah, and ideology, we talked about that with the Neptune ingress, I think in May, that I think ideology takes on this almost crazy big form with Neptune and Aries. And I think that's why the Civil War, you know, Neptune was in Aries, and ideology shaped a lot of what was going on around that time, and clashing because my ideology is better than your ideology and things like that. And so with regards to being delusional or deluded into thinking a certain way or feeling a certain way, and then the moon will be in Aries with Jupiter in Cancer, and it's like, you know, the possibility of acting on something that we don't have all the information on is there, and or that we have imagined, because that's what Neptune does. It can be incredibly creative imagining, and it can be incredibly destructive cult-like behavior, you know. So when
But
you
you could
look at both of
imagine
those.
something and tell yourself that story enough that you believe it to be true in the waking world, that delusion then becomes more damaging, because the imaginal space is great. We need it. We get to experience that, but when you start to kind of convince yourself with it, especially with that moon in Aries, I think you're right. It's like now you've taken it and you've released your own inner demons, and like no one signed up for your inner demons, like it's your
Mm-hmm.
response. Like Jumanji, it's like it's your responsibility. You need to bring that shit back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, you have this emotional narrative that
Hmm.
inspires you to do something, but it lacks clarity,
Yeah.
and it with Jupiter in Cancer, because it really does expand our emotional narratives that we have, and I just keep thinking with the moon in Aries and Neptune square to it all, it just kind of is like, "Ugh, let's look at it."
That's a perfect little sound effect. Ugh.
Like Lucille Ball.
Hmm.
Here we go. Yeah, the moon is conjoined to Neptune at the square. I didn't realize that. That is so crazy. So yeah, I mean, check yourself before you wreck yourself on June 18th. That is probably the best phrase to use, I think, here.
Yep.
Mars is in conjunct Saturn as well, so there is that can't see the boundary or the structure,
Hmm.
So oh shoo we. What's next?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say on that one. The next day, about the
Sun in
same,
Cancer.
but then the sun, yeah, the solstice on the 20th.
I was like, do I go back? No, we'll just look at the solstice. Why not? Because the solstice is an important ingress. I'm going to get the exact moment because there we go. 9:42 p.m. June 20th. Of course, it's late. It's like, and it seems like the sun is just
Literally at the bottom of your chart.
exactly. It is boom right down there. And it's honestly so crazy how late the sun is setting right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
it seems like it's light at 9 o'clock, and it probably is. So it's just kind of funny to think about, knowing we're going into the longest day of the
I like
year.
the moon exactly sextile the sun there.
It's cute.
Yeah, that's
It's
cute.
really nice. And I really do think that this signals some better feeling energy. I hate to
Mm.
use the word energy when I'm talking about astrology, but it's better stuff to me. And you've passed the Jupiter square Saturn, passed the Jupiter square to Neptune, Mercury squared it, Venus is squared Pluto. It's like, okay, well, we kind of did all that.
Yeah.
So I love the solstice and excited about it. And
Well, and
then
I like that Mars is out of
I'm
Leo
sorry.
too. I mean, I like Mars and Leo, but Mars getting out of Leo, it gets out of that supportive trine for all the Aries stuff that's going on. It kind of gets it out of the way. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not, Aries can't see its ruler. So it's kind of, it unplugs a little bit of the power source, which kind of might be nice to just
Yeah.
to turn off one of the burners in the Aries house. As someone that has Aries sixth house, I see all that energy of Aries and just think of like, you know, having a lot of responsibility and having a lot of pots on the stove and unplugging one of them and just focusing on others when Mars gets out of Leo and is out of that
Mm-hmm.
supportive trine, it just kind of is like a reprieve. It's like, okay, there's just like a lot less activity being kind of shown on the Aries house. And even though we're in Cancer season at this point, just having Saturn and Neptune there, supported with that sextile from Pluto, and then having the square from the Sun and Jupiter, it's like it really is kind of all pointing back to that Aries energy, and just the ruler of Aries kind of getting out of the way. It just feels like it helps in kind of an accidental way.
I love that. And I know the next day the sun squares Saturn, but that happens every year a few times, you know, so it's like you're going to have Sun interacting with Saturn no matter where Saturn is. So that doesn't scream huge deal to me. Um, I think maybe there's some obstacles there that day. There may be some things to deal with on June 22nd, but I do love that the moon will be hitting Venus just before the square. Granted, the moon will be hitting Uranus at the square, so I mean, whatever, it's fine.
I mean, Sun Saturn, you know, is like that. It can typically, or it can often be kind of the loss of solar figures, having that square nature with Saturn in the Sun's exaltation and Sun and Saturn's exile. It's like it does feel like it's like a good recipe for a leader dying or stepping down. You know, that square energy, it does happen all the time, happens, you know, at least once a year. But I feel like it might be its own Sun's day. You know, it might be kind of a significant, depending on what happens with, you know, at least in the States, but there's lots of political unrest happening all over. I mean, Venezuela,
everywhere.
Ukraine, Palestine, I mean, everywhere. And, you know, there's the idea
even
of
India and Pakistan, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, leaders, whether they're male or not, but that solar figure, which in our world are usually men, it is like that tension and that death of either the position or the human behind the position. So even though it does happen, I kind of see it of like, well,
you
just mark the day.
And we talked about some possibilities. I mean, I hate to hear that Biden is sick, but I mean, the chart leading up to this just looks like it's going to trigger his chart, for lack of a better way to say it. And even just thinking that, and then we get to this point, and like you said, there's so much political unrest everywhere. If I don't quit doing that, that it could very well be something like that on that day. And I think it's also significant that Mars is coming in a sextile here, or it has been. And here on, what did I have it on the calendar? It's like the 23rd. I have the next day because the Sun and Jupiter get to 3 degrees, but there's a sextile here.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then there's a yod with Pluto too. So, and that's the next day, and that's right before the Cazimi. And the Cazimi will activate that 3rd degree even more, but 3 degrees, 3 degrees, 3 degrees.
Get the 3rd finger
of God. The 3rd degree, baby.
Yeah.
It's a magic number. That's what I keep saying. But the sextile here, which is opportunity between Virgo and Cancer, and then the in conjunct, you know, these Cancer and Virgo can't see Aquarius. I mean, it just isn't, they don't really understand each other. But during a finger of God, a yod is what it's called, it almost allows, there's a window into that spot, and it's pointing at it. It's like, look at this place. I know that Cancer, I know that Virgo, you don't normally look at the Aquarius place, but look at it. And it's Pluto, and Pluto transformation. And I say all that to say that the solar figure thing you were talking about, even the yod kind of speaks to something like that, because of what Pluto is, you know, and what Mars is. And Mars, you know, being sextile, what is the opportunity there? I mean, I think that's good. Mars sextile the Cazimi is great. But the in conjunct to Pluto is just like, don't forget about that, you know?
Yeah. What's not getting my attention though is just the mercurial nature. You know, Mars is at home, or is in Mercury's home, and Mercury's bound. Pluto is in Mercury's bound. And so can we look at when Mercury opposes Pluto? Because that's happening later. It's at the very end of the month, right?
I want to say, the 29th.
Yeah. At 3 degrees, right?
At 3 degrees, yeah.
So it feels like those 2 days are kind of tied. Is that like a week apart? What was that?
22nd to 29th, yeah, pretty much. Let's see.
So that week, that whole week is quite a week. And the message, the mercurial message, something that needs to be said, something that needs to be communicated, whether collectively or individually, which, you know, with the Aquarius Leo feels kind of like that tension. Maybe you saying something out loud that other people are also feeling, coming from
Oh,
that
yeah.
that moment of you know, that sextile with Mars, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, the discovery of Mars and Virgo. So the different expressions of Mercury through Gemini and Virgo. My go-tos is that Gemini is just collecting the data. It's getting all the information, it's pulling in all the threads and not evaluating them necessarily for truth, because what is truth, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Virgo goes in and sees all of the data and all the information and all the threads that Gemini has pulled together and sorts it and makes sense of it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Gemini
Mm-hmm.
is a more expressive yang of Mercury, as someone said, of Germany, and Virgo is like the yin, so it's like the reflective piece. And so something about Mars there really pulling together some communicative threads of truth, and then kind of speaking to that collectiveness, that unearthing of a retrograde Pluto. And then once
Yeah.
Mercury hits that 3 degree of Leo, is then expressing it out. That's kind of what I get from this.
I like the way you put that. And I'm just sitting here staring at this chart, like, what a wild ass chart. Sorry, it's crazy. Just to have so many things everywhere.
The
And it,
moon.
yeah, even the moon. And I didn't even mean to do that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just what came up. Mercury will be squaring Chiron. So there is that need to put mental attention on how you're caring for whatever that wound is. And then Venus, I like that Venus is coming into a sextile and a trine with the nodes even around this time.
Yeah.
It just seems like things are just locking into place in a way that we can't quite comprehend yet. And Uranus is at 29, the anaretic degree of Taurus. So I would consider this on a moon day to be a pretty um, significant day during this month. And I would say it's, let's just call June the whole month. You know, we're going to ask, we usually ask at the end, what do we like? What is our best day? And what is our least favorite day? And I'm just like, it's just the whole month is so active. It's hard to even parse it out because the
Mm-hmm.
Kazemi
That's
is
my
the
favorite
very
day.
next day.
That's my favorite day.
That's your favorite day
Yeah,
already. She's got
already.
it.
Yeah. I was like,
Sun and
I have an opinion. But yeah,
uh-huh.
that whole week feels like one crazy long, you know, like Fellini movie that just like goes from one
Yeah.
scene to another. Like they don't do any set change. It's like the
Yeah.
Fellini movie is like that whole week is one day in the Gemini Cancer. Or actually, it's all Cancer at that point from the 22nd
Hmm.
through the end of the month, you know. So it's like this crazy story. It feels very mercurial, it feels very Gemini. But yeah, the actual day of the Jupiter Cazimi at that 3rd degree, um yeah, I think that's my favorite day, just because it's singularly something that we haven't had in a dozen years. And I feel like we're looking at a year transit of Jupiter exalted. And when any planet gets to have a seat in the heart of the throne room of the sun, you get access to that illumination. And I'm looking forward to that day just for that Kazemi moment, because I feel like it might elucidate how we can participate for the next year with Jupiter in Cancer.
Yeah. It helps wrap up the Jupiter transit through Gemini too, with the moon in Gemini at the Kazemi. I really
Mhm.
like that
Yeah.
because Jupiter in Gemini has been personally so annoying to me. I really have not enjoyed that at all. But then again, you know, it's personal. However, that being said, no matter what you've experienced during the Jupiter and Gemini transit, the Jupiter Cazimi will be looking at the moon in Gemini, and the moon will be looking at Mercury in Cancer, and it almost
Yeah.
just kind of squishes, it threads them together. It
Yeah.
threads them together. So, you know, you're moving from a very frenetic mental energy to a very I don't want to call Cancer soft, but it is. It is nurturing and love and emotion and your family and your home and also your history and your ancestry and everything like that. But Mercury is in that sign. So it's almost like it brings that mercurial, I see what you're saying, energy into this Cancer space. So we're not quite done with the mercurial stuff. And then we will be, but not yet,
Yeah.
so
Gemini season always feels like it rushes through, maybe because Mercury doesn't spend that much time there. It just like is so speedy, so fast, but it does feel like an extension, And I wouldn't say Cancer is soft. I will say Cancer is squishy.
Squishy.
There's a difference.
There is a difference. Soft and squishy, little two different things. And then we have the new moon, June 25th. At 4 degrees, but very, very close to Jupiter, very close to Jupiter. And as much as Jupiter is, Jupiter and the moon are burned up by the sun, I think this is a great new moon. I think that this is the seed planting times of all seed planting times, honestly. If you're going to make any sort of intentional movement around this time, I think it's a good idea. I really do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, to nurture, I mean, if we look just 6 months from now when the moon is, or 6 months would be January 25th-ish.
Yeah, with the full moon in Capricorn or something. Full moon in Cancer.
Full moon in Cancer, yeah. So like even just using that as a vision of, okay, it's the end of June. Where do I want to see the Cancer house? Find out what the Cancer house is for you. What do I want to nourish and nurture? What house plant do I want to water and fertilize and change pots and trim and deadhead and all those things? What do I want to cultivate? Because it is like such a fertile new moon. And we'll still have Jupiter there. And yeah.
That's right. Jupiter will be retrograde at 21 when we have that full moon. So I agree. And it's so helpful to look 6 months. I love to use the new and full moons like that. So you use the new moon in Cancer, then the full moon in Cancer comes in 6 months. And it's a good way to just plan and look ahead. And I noticed Mars will be in Capricorn exalted at that time. So, lots of Mars, Earth stuff going on.
Another thing I wanted to bring up when I was looking at it, it's like everything except Pluto, because Pluto's retrograde, everything else is forward in June. So it adds to that frenetic movement. It's, nothing is, everything's out of its shadow from the previous retrograde during March and April. Everything is forward except for Pluto, but all the rest are kind of, moving forward in the nodes, of course. But I kind of like that. And I feel like it'll go by quick when we start to slow down, in July, August, things will start to kind of wind down a little bit. But I feel like that's why Cancer is squishy, is because if you think of the being tossed around in the waves, it's like you have to be malleable and you have to be adaptable because your circumstances, it's the lunar realm, the circumstances are constantly changing, and the idea that Cancer is obsessed with home, it's like because the home is constantly in flux, and there's this responsibility of maintaining some sort of shell so that it can keep all the softness inside. But that squishiness is just being able to bounce around the shells that you get tossed in when the waves shift. So
yeah, for sure. And this is a good time to keep all of that in your mind when you have this new moon, June 25th. Good for setting intentions around home, family, and then of course look at the house that it happens in for you, because it'll be in my first house. Woo! Trying my Pluto, trying my Saturn. I like that. I need that. I'm sure everyone does at some point.
I like the rainbow for the Jupiter Cazimi on the 24th. That's nice.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. And and that's kind of why I feel like here the 22nd is really, we're like, there's going to be more stuff in the future that hard is always there. So, but I just feel like this week might be a nice end to the month, whereas we had just the weird orange cat energy at the beginning of the month, now we've got rainbow, and that's kind of nice. I like that.
And dancing on the 26th with Mercury going into Leo.
Yes, that, and I thought to myself, I was like, let's think about this, Mandy, because Mercury will retrograde in Leo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be in July, but at the very beginning of it, I mean, Leo's going to be so happy to have Mercury there because it had Mars there for so long. So I think there will just be this fun dancing. We had a new moon, maybe where we, work some things out. We feel taken care of, or we're starting to. And I even think the finger of God here, I love, as sad as it is that God never touches, I guess that's Adam in the painting.
Mm.
It's like it's still, you're reaching out for that. You're still trying to touch that. And that's what this feels like all week. And then we get to the 27th, and it's Mercury trine Saturn from
Even
Leo.
your cursor is not quite touching the fingers.
Just barely right there. And then we've got, I guess to end the month, we're going to close out on the opposition of Mercury to Pluto. But Mercury trine Saturn, the 27th, is nice. I mean, it's always just something where I think you can harness the building energy of Saturn, hopefully. When we're talking Leo and Aries, though, it's not really like an actual building. It's more like creative, fiery movement.
I like it just for a good business idea, especially if you're a water rising, you've got fire as the kind of those workhouses. When you were talking about, Mercury going retrograde in Leo, and you have the dancing emoji, I was like, I wonder if we're going to experience like some sort of revival of some dance from ages past during that retrograde, bringing back, I don't know, the checkout
the
or whatever. Something pretty silly. But yeah, I mean, with the new moon, maybe the new moon kind of springs some sort of like idea with Jupiter there of, that's really kind of furthered on with the trine with Mercury and Saturn. I like that just for a business idea with the moon and Leo as well. Building something in the creative space.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm a water rising, right? So are you. So it's like, that's definitely on my brain. And I think, if it's happening, let's just say in your, I don't know, maybe your cadent houses, I think in some way that might be like spiritual building, it's just like, it does feel like you can harness that no matter what, I think. So
yeah.
Depends on what your rising sign is. And then the caution, I got my little caution things here for Mercury opposite Pluto, because yeah, I mean,
yes, cuidado, like fiery floor.
it's very true. It's one of those things that I always look at Mercury Pluto as a time when I need to probably draw a boundary. And I don't know if that's because Pluto's empowerment to me, and Mercury is about how you think and speak. And a lot of times Mercury opposite Pluto, you realize you've been disempowered in something. And that's where,
why you're speaking up, because of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I get from that. And it's only more like caution, like there could be, something up ahead that you need to deal with. That's what I think why I put those little cones there. But that's Mercury is released from Pluto after that, though, and I think that's kind of nice. So maybe look at the chart one more time, because it's the end of the month.
Yeah, let's look at the end of the month and see how we close it.
Let's see. I know that we had the Mercury opposite Pluto here, and that was the 29th. I do like there's no more really deep red lines though on this chart. Yay, it's starting to get a little flowy, and that's kind of nice. Oh yeah, it ends on the 30th, doesn't it? There we are, the end of the month, and it's Moon Mars, of course, right? Like that's one of the last kind of things we have going.
But in Virgo, so it's maybe not as bad
It's
as when it was
sextile, the sun.
Mars in Cancer.
That's true. That's very true. And it's almost like Mars is carrying that torch though by sextiling the sun and Jupiter around this time. It's like, man, I didn't realize how tough it was for you Cancerians. It's like Mars understands. It's like, I know what to do. I can go in Virgo and fix it,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's, like you said, that's nice. And, it's so close to, this is so anaretic, so close. Where we go? I'm going hour by hour. Oh, no, that's okay because it's the end. Here we go. Venus. Okay, by the end of about when we start July, it's Venus, Uranus is going to be the big story there. So it's just a little preview, because that's the next biggest thing is that conjunction right there.
Yep. On July 4th.
On July 4th.
Is
No
that
biggie.
what's the exact conjunction? Because they're a few minutes apart. Is it still the July 4th?
Probably. I'm looking now. Let's see. I think it was when I looked. Yeah, 7:45 a.m. 2952. Anaretic is the degree of crisis.
Yeah, it's in Saturn's decan and Mars is bound. So it'll be good for us. It's character building moment right there.
Character building. You know how to spin it. Practical Astros, don't you? Good job.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. Well, that's June. And can't wait to hear comments or read them, I guess. Please don't call me and cuss me out. That'd be bad. But you can leave comments.
Yeah. We'll just delete it if we don't agree with it.
Exactly.
Which I don't think I've had to do. So thanks, audience, for being pretty kind and gentle.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. There's a lot of information out there. So we're always thankful that you chose to put us in your head while you drive around or do housework or hate your job or walk the dog or work in the garden or cook dinner. Mandy does these great. You haven't done it in a while, but the Instagram lives when you're cooking, because like cooking and talking astro, it's good. It's such a good Cancer mommy thing to just sit and listen.
I really need to do that again, just because I need to hop back on my own astrology stuff. And it's just been that kind of a time period, hasn't it? It's just been, especially for me, it's been pretty rough. So I look forward to getting back to doing that. Ecstatic astrology, everybody. I'm supposed to be ecstatic.
Yeah, what does ecstatic mean? It's like to be outside oneself.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time that you like reintegrate so that you can go outside of yourself by choice.
By choice, instead of being forced to be like, what is going on? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, ecstaticastrology.com, and you are practicalastros.com, right?
Yep.
And on all the socials. And please like, share, and subscribe and all that jazz.
Yeah. We're very far away from being at the point where we will have commercials. I was thinking about that the other day because I don't pay for YouTube. But like now some channels like have commercials that I used to listen to, and I'm like, wow, it was way more enjoyable when it wasn't monetized because I didn't have to like wait for that Hardee's commercial so I could skip it. So we appreciate the subscription, so that you can keep track of us, but we're not at the point where we're going to have Hardee's commercials that interrupt your astro flow. So
at least there's that.
I hope you have a good June and ride the roller coaster. Stay squishy. Ciao.
Like and subscribe.